Hello everyone and welcome to today's webinar. Today's webinar topic that I'll be covering is out with AFP forms and in with iForms. My name is Greg Schmidt and I'll be the presenter for today. And I'll be walking through how to replace your current AFP document creation process and or outdated existing forms creation software that you're using today with an easier to use, more modern approach that can be integrated into your business systems and processes. The iForms document creation solution is a modern alternative to the IBM unsupported AFP document creation and outdated forms packages that no longer are supported. The software is robust, functionality is the perfect solution for all your company's forms, report generation, and delivery needs today and also into the future. iForms gives you the ability to create forms with data from the IBM I and or Windows systems or other databases that you have out there, DB2 or SQL or MySQL. You generate documents from spool files or, like I said, databases. Create professional invoices, purchase orders, billing statements, deck pages for insurance and stuff like that, but there's really no limit to the forms creation process there. Believe it or not, many IBM I shops today are stuck in what we call status quo when it comes to their forms of today. Pre-printed forms, manual programming, and outdated technology prevent them from making improvements to their processes. So if this sounds familiar, we hope today I can help you with that sort of that thought process in starting that journey and replacing AFP or any outdated solution that you might be using. Again, my name is Greg Schmidt. I'm a 22-year veteran as a senior sales engineer here at Help Systems in the document and forms automation and SQL Business Intelligence brands here. I specialize in document and forms automation processes and business intelligence data visualization. I've been key part in helping companies over the years automate their data and document processes and also streamline and bring back efficiencies into their business with the use of our technology. I've also been helping with strategic planning for digital transformation of data and documents. Within the digital transformation guidance, I also help guide companies in best practices for implementation and solution expansion of their current product sets that they might own from us. I have over a decade's worth of experience in the IBM I report and data distribution and robotic process automation technologies as well. Within the document and forms management solution here at Help Systems, we've been helping companies for decades on their digital transformation and automation journeys. We help streamline the way companies create, capture, securely manage, and do distribution of their business documents, processes, and business data. We have a variety of solutions in 4 key areas: secure document and workflow management for your IBM I reports and business documents, along with workflow enforcement for your processes that are document or forms based. Intelligent forms and workflow management. This is basically, what I like to call beyond the paper kind of process, right? So being able to enforce your organization's standards on how they collect data in a form and where they collect it from, and also process that through a workflow to enforce the business process behind it. Accounts receivable automation and document creation automation, which we'll be talking about today with our iForms product, our document creation assembly automation. And then last of all, accounts payable automation. We have created 4 packages to be able to help you at whatever step of that AP journey you are, from I'll call it an interactive process to a fully automated process with hands-off capture technology that uses intelligent capture and OCR ability to be able to do classification and data extraction. Here's a quick look at today's agenda that I'll be covering, starting out with a quick look at the problems with AFP forms creation, and inside of that process, right? And then we'll look, what you should be looking at in a replacement solution to be able to help you. Then I'll be doing a live iForms solution overview. First of all, talking about some of the different functionality of this iForms solution itself, and then I'll get into a live demonstration as much as time permits here today to be able to show you some of those key features inside of the solution. And then at the end, if time allows, I'll be doing some Q&A. So if there's any questions that you might have, feel free to put those into the chat window as the presentation is going on here today. And remember, today's event is being recorded, and after you will receive a link to the to this event, so you can rewatch or share with anyone that might not been able to attend today's session. Okay, let's get started. The one nice thing about advanced function printing or AFP printing, right? Or your current form solutions that you might be using is that some point in the past, your company has embraced moving from either pre-printed forms to having a nicer looking output format and a nicer looking and an easier to use process, right? That's a good start. But however, the moves by IBM in regards to printing and AFP print management over the past several years and the need to improve forms processes is an iterative change process, and it's moving pretty fast to, so that the next generation of technology is moving in, right? So being able to have processes that are better suited for your current systems and easier to use. So that's going to be a big common thread here today, is easier to use solutions and removing some of the painful process that comes along with other form solutions and or AFP. Using AFP forms also takes special programming knowledge for creating overlays, page segments, and other elements needed to generate a new form. Not to mention that each form requires its own custom RPG program to generate an AFP output document for print or electronic distribution. AFP and IPDS printing also often requires special printers or converter boxes to render the forms correctly on today's modern printers and multifunction print servers. Let me quickly walk you through the 3 pain points for AFP printing. Starting with the lack of future support for AFP. The writing has been on the wall for AFP forms for years now. IBM has dropped support for AFP utilities in OS release 7.3 and above. And that being said, if IBM isn't putting resources into AFP, you should also be rethinking your AFP form strategy, right? You want to make sure your company is supported on a very important process that creates revenue for the business. You don't want that to be an unsupported process. The InfoPrint designer for AFP forms design isn't supported on modern desktop OSs and is not being enhanced. In fact, it is recommended that InfoPrint users move to another forms design tool going forward. Fortunately, we have a solution that can work with your existing AFP process and also help you moving forward. And you don't have to do what we call a rip out and replace of your forms overnight. With our solution, we give you the ability to implement the modern forms like iForms would be able to do, and still give you access and reference to your existing AFP process if need be. So we'll talk a little bit about that later on and how we can do some of that different function there. And the next one is the AFP knowledge is depleting. It is another big issue, right? Many of the older generation of RPG programmers and developers are moving on to other roles, or they're getting close to retirement. The newer generation coming in to do the forms programming and design work don't have the same RPG programming skill set. They are expecting a modern graphical tool to work with. Having to teach a form designer who comes, from the visual development generation, the golden rule of manual AFP programming process is not an exercise that will be productive. And last of all the manual forms design process, right? There's multiple steps inside of here. The process for creating AFP forms is highly manual. In fact, you need to create a document, export it, manually convert it to a form overlay, and print it using an RPG program on the IBM I. Repeating this process over and over again would give anyone a headache, right? I mean, that's multiple steps, multiple pieces you have to do if you have to, move a box over or anything like that. And if you need to make that change again, to the form, it involves all those manual steps again, right? So like I was talking about, if something needs to be moved or bumped over, it takes multiple, multiple steps to be able to do that. There's also several other problems with this process, right? The forms design changes can't be done quickly, right? So that process should be very quickly, be able to do that with a modern solution very quickly. If something needs to be bumped over or some text needs to be changed, it should be a process that's pretty streamlined for that. Again, custom RPG programming is required for every form. You have to have an output to spool file. Forms with AFP and PCL-based overlays don't always render correctly to both printers and PDF documents. We'll talk a little bit about how iForms does that to actually remove that painful area in that whole process. And often customers are still using special AFP or IPDS printers, right? That require those different conversion boxes. So being able, and those are very costly to maintain and have maintenance on, today. So now you can use any laser printer to be able to do these printing functions. If you know this pain, it might be time to replace your outdated electronic forms or AFP technology. As you'll see in the iForms demonstration today, the forms design tool and runtime process can be greatly simplified. Now, here are a few things to look for in an AFP replacement solution. These are not the only ones here, but there's many different ones you can do here. But your AFP replacement should be able to give you both modern forms design functionality and the ability to still use your existing AFP forms as a background image for data to be placed over. So that's a great way to be able to start out, right? So in this case, it allows you to start out right away with using the iForms solution without having to do any forms design process around there, and just map the data using our graphical interface over the form itself. And you'll see here from the bullets here too, I can read these off here, but look for replacements that deliver simple forms design from beginning to end. Right? So no programming required, but still give you the capability to do programming if you need to do special, kind of, configurations and stuff like that, right? Forms versioning, make sure it's easy and has the ability to do that, and has the ability to create multiple environments with no extra cost, meaning that you can have on the same logical partition, you can have like a development environment, a staging and different staging environments like that. And then offer a seamless transition from AFP. Like we just talked about earlier here, right? So being able to have a background image and be able to do things right away from that standpoint. The ability to create dynamic and static forms, right? So invoices and BOLs, the dynamic side of things would be more of the invoices. The statics would be more of the bill of ladings and stuff like that. And quick and configurable process to create, letters, right? So customer letters, checks, shipping labels. And last of all, expandability of the solution to do more and change over time without the need to buy more, right? So being able to have all the different forms you can do and expand it throughout the organization, or even do reports later on from data-driven side of things. All right, here's a look at inside of the process for the iForms, right? The iForms process can be broken into 3 stages: accessing your form data and the visual mapping process, designing and or tracing a form with the iForms graphical designer, And then the final stage is the distribution stage, where you can print, email, save to a network location, and or use our add-on, the WebDocs document management solution for the back-end secure repository. Here's just a few use case examples. We'll be taking a little bit deeper look at some of these different use case examples in the live demonstration here in just a few minutes. But first, the first form shows how you can use a form to start the data collection process, and start collecting that information inside of the form, and then be able to create like that bill of lading here, or those different check processes here, and then push that through inside of the process here. But these are some nice examples here, that I'll say the pretty common examples, right? There might be some pack lists and different things like that, but different industries, obviously different document types, right? From that standpoint, but insurance, packets and stuff like that we can do, and some different functions there. And again, here are some of those use cases just sort of broken down here. So purchase orders, invoices, bill ladings, pack lists, advanced ship notices, statements, insurance document, the letter generation process, reports. Reports are becoming big right now too. Instruction manuals, and then also, like I said, shipping labels, being able to do 2 and 3D barcode functions, and then be able to pull those out of different kinds of data sources. Now, within the iForms solution itself, iForms offers 2 core functionalities to it. The document creation portion of it, where you're creating the nice pixel perfect documents, for customer presentable, and then also the ability to do document assembly functions. Those are key to the process here. Now, with the iForms, you can create electronic forms and professional business reports, virtually from any data source, right? The software allows you to create professional, like I said, invoices, purchase orders, billing statements, and any kind of reports that you might need to do, or anything that you're doing, like pre-printed forms on, or you have some, custom reports that you do, but you can use it for those different purposes there. The iForms solution gives you that ability to create forms from IBM iSpool files, or PC generated files like text files and stuff like that, XML files. So you can use different data sources at that point. You can also generate forms from SQL data, or other kinds of sources out there, or DB2 or anything like that, right? So we can connect to those different data sources to be able to do that. Output, the most standard output, obviously, is going to be usually printing we're going to output to, but a lot of times when we're doing distribution of those, we're doing PDF, TIFF, HTML, or some of those other common formats out there. And inside of this, it's a graphical form, right? So you can actually use spool files to overlay. There's no limit on the designers. You can install and use as many as you need. So that's a nice feature inside the solution. Assemble documents and packets. That's one we'll talk about here in a second, but that's the other piece there. But print documents to any printer. We have monitors that can monitor. We can integrate into your application using native IBM commands, so you can build those into your CLs, or we also do have a universal REST API if you want to be able to consume a REST API. And again, native monitors, we have web browser monitor setup interfaces, or green screen interfaces to set up from, and then also the solution can run in a couple different modes, which we'll talk about here in just a few minutes. And then whether if you're a manufacturer who needs to do assembly or route shop floor documents through a production process, or an insurance company that needs to gather and or mail customer policy packets, we have the ability with our assembly process to be able to do document assembly and creation. So one of the common use cases for document assembly is when an invoice is created, we might put terms and conditions or attach another PDF to it as a back page or another form, and or we might even put a picture on the back end of the product. We have customers doing that from that standpoint. When they do that, we'll go out to a folder and grab the correct product information and do that. We have packet assembly processes where we're doing instruction manuals that they're putting in the boxes after their creation, but they have those different capabilities there. And this assembly process does have a monitor function, but you can also build it into your RPG and CL programs directly with the native code. And if you need in your process, we can also do pre-processing or splitting of your spool files. That might need, that you're generated as one spool file, right? So we can actually, break those up. And the pre-processing engine can split and burst, obviously, the reports, like I just said. And then it can also be used to do email and delivery lookups in your ERP solution or database for background or back-end, delivery processes that iForms might be facilitating. So we can take an invoice number, go look up an email address off that invoice number and pull that from your customer or vendor master, and then process that into the next step inside of there. And then iForms, like I was talking about earlier, iForms has a variety of ways that it can be configured, and also the platform that it can run on, right? So we can run native Windows, we can run native IBM I, and we can run in a mixed mode environment. And I would say most of our customers either run native I or in mixed mode. Mixed mode gives you the advantage, gives you a couple advantages to be able to, take full control of printers at that point, right? Because the Windows print driver has way more functionality in some cases. We have a customer or a few customers that actually have some really, I'll call it, really cool printers or multifunction printers that have, probably I think 8 to 10 trays. I think that one had, and then they also have like stapling function and different kinds of assembly functions inside of their colored paper and all that good stuff. And the IBM I print driver could not do that process. So we actually ran it in mixed mode to be able to do that and be able to take advantage of some of those staple and different functions there as well. All right, now I just want to take a few minutes to show you some of the features within the iForms document creation and assembly solution, right? I'm going to start out with some of the forms design process here, and then we'll go through those different pieces there at that point, so you can sort of get a little feel for the solution. By no means this is not going to be a full demonstration, so like I said, you'll feel free to contact us for a live demonstration as well, so we can do different things to sort of walk you through your process, and I can show you some of the forms and stuff like that you might be wanting to create. But the iForms solution, so the first part of that process, right? I always there's two different ways you can go, right? You can go ahead and design the form. So you can design the pretty form structure here using the iForms designer, and this is a graphical designer, so you can come in here and create lines and barcodes and rectangles and put images in and graphs and charts and all that good stuff from the visual standpoint, right? So this visual designer allows you to be able to create those and configure those different things. So if you want color or do different things inside of here, you have that full function to be able to do that and fine tune things with this properties tab over here to be able to do that, right? So you do have that capability there. The designer also gives you the capability to be very dynamic with things. So we actually have the capability inside of here to do certain things, I'll call them expressions, right? Think of them as business rules where we say, hey, we see a negative number, so we might want to turn it red, or we might want to bold it, or hey, it's coming from a different location, so we might want to flip-flop the logo or something like that, or the address or something like that inside of the form. So that does give you the capability to, I'll call it, extend the functionality using the expression editor. By no means you don't have to use the expression editor. A lot of our customers do not need the expression editor to do what they need to do. This just gives you that future functionality, going forward if you need to do some fine tuning of the visual elements and sometimes where the data is coming from. So we have that capability there. You can put barcodes in here. You have the full capability to do all different kinds of barcodes. You see here, you can change the barcode type over here on the right-hand panel. So you do get that capability there to change and modify those different things there, barcodes and all that stuff inside of here. And then one thing before I go into the design is I think this is really a big thing, especially coming from AFP forms. We have a lot of customers that really like this function. is the capability to test the form directly with the data source or without a data source, right? So there's a without data source here, empty data source, or execute it with a data source. This is actually, when you press that button, it's going to give you a visual of that document. So what it's doing is creating that visual PDF for you so that you can see that inside of the designer here and see if everything lines up and if the data looks good. And you can see that this one has a QR code and everything on it as well. So you have different capabilities there. Now we'll come back to some different samples here, but from a design standpoint, from the data element, right? So there is a piece here that, so how do we get the fields into this form, right? And what if it's spool file driven? So we have a spool file designer, or text layer designer, we call it, that gives you the capability to, first of all, browse an output queue if you need to. So it has a browse option to browse an output queue, and then import that into the designer, and then allows you to draw boxes so you can add fields over the top of these different points, data points inside of here. So think of it as this is an extraction template, right? And I have one completed here. I'll double click on it here so you can sort of see it. But that extraction template is going to give you all those different data fields. So you're just going to draw the boxes over the top of things inside of there, and then give them that symbolic name. And then by giving them that symbolic name, you're going to be able to load that information into the form. And then all this information to you is now accessible to drag and drop over to the form function. So if you want to be able to place something on a form in a certain location, you can now move that over visually and then line that up and then fine tune it with some different rule code, or just formatting text over here on the right panel. So that's with spool files and text documents that you can do. The other option would be from databases, right? So if you see here in the middle, I do have some different options here for different data sources that I have. And we do have a database wizard inside of here, so you can create different connections using different drivers to be able to connect out to those different systems. But the database part of it, sort of the same way, right? In this case, you're doing a query though. So you can query your database to be able to get to your data fields, and then you're going to name the fields with those database field names to be able to tie that to your data source. So that's another option there for you to be able to do that. So you can actually visually see some of those different functions there, and then you would use the naming convention for those. So you do have that function there. We do have, so from a forms design standpoint as well, we'll go back to the forms design quick here. I know we're coming up on time, but there is plugins inside of here, the iForms server plugin. This is going to give you that capability to what we call trace. So we can actually trace information as well. So that trace function there gives you that I can load a PDF in the background or an image in the background and trace over the top of it. Or in some cases, like I was saying, if you don't want to do a rip and replace, that trace option could be data over the top of an image, right? So you do have those different functions there at that point. Oh, and as you see there too, inside of that option there is that when I go to my template functions here, there is when I connect to different servers, we can actually connect to different servers and then have local files and then server environments. So you can move stuff back and forth. So change management process, you can move things back and forth. It's a really cool feature there that a lot of customers take advantage of. And again, you can have as many environments as you want inside of the solution. One of the big things that I want to hit on here too is the native commands, right? So we do have that full REST API inside of there that gives you the capability there. But we do have native commands inside here. So if someone wanted to do the assembly function, they can use our assembly commands, and then we have our IFM exec commands. And what these are, these are going to be commands that you can pass variables to and stuff like that through your programs and stuff like that and do it directly. So you do have those different functions inside of here to be able to use those, use the capability of the solution in your current application code. So you do have those different functions. And then another thing I want to just, we talked about the test, kind of thing as well, but being able to test in the interface, the native commands and all that stuff, static, dynamic. One of the other things customers really like is the capability to sometimes do mixed data, right? So I don't want to forget about this part of it, is that you might be, some of it might be coming from a spool file, or it might be coming from multiple data sources, right? So we do give you the capability to create sub-reports, and sub-reports are things that can be reused, right, as well. So you can build a sub-report that might go out to a customer address table or something like that, or a billing system, and pull in information, and then build a create a report to do that. So if you have an existing report, you can load that, or you can create one here. And think of the creation process as you're connecting to a data source, and then you're doing some kind of SQL query or statement in that case to be able to build and retrieve the data you want to be able to place in there. So if we could do a customer number lookup and do things like that. So you do have that capability. All right, I'm going to take some time for Q&A here now. I know we're running over time here, but I know we have a few questions here that I want to get into. And some of these I did answer already, so they came in a little bit earlier. Someone asked the question, do you have to recreate each form inside the solution, or do you have an import option? We don't have an import option, but we have that trace or background image option that would allow you to do that. Then over time, you can recreate them with the solution. And then the one I just talked about, I was actually answering this question. I was reading it as I was going through here, but we have spool file driven forms, but we are running on the iSeries with our current solution, but they need to bring DB2 and also SQL database information into the forms, right? So can iForms do that? And the answer is yes. That's why I just showed from that standpoint. We can create those database driven or a combination of both. Can labels be printed as zebra printers? Yes. So it's just dependent. We might recommend that you run in a mixed mode environment to get that full functionality of the printer, but yes, you can do that. All right, there's still a lot of great questions out there, but I know we're running over time. I want to get everybody back to their day. I will follow up after the webinar though with the questions that did come in that we did not get to. But before we go, I want to say, before you move to 7.3 beyond, 7.3 OS version or beyond, or if you already have, right, you should be, and you're using AFP, you should have that replacement plan in place, right? And remember, you don't need to do that rip and replace, overnight. With the right solution, like the iForms solution, you can actually build them as you go and use some of those background images. I just want to thank everyone for attending today's webinar, and I hope you've learned some helpful information on how to start to replace your AFP forms or outdated forms solution. If you have any additional questions, feel free to reach out to our document and forms management sales team here at Help System, and they'll be happy to schedule a free consultation or a live one-on-one demonstration with your organization to address any of the questions that you might have had from today or future questions that might come up, and give you a further look into the full solution on some of the different things that you can do from the delivery and stuff like that, and some of the other functions I did not cover today. And again, remember, you will also receive a recording link to the webinar. You can share with anyone in your organization that could not attend today's session, or if you would like to rewatch. Thanks again for attending today's webinar, and have a great rest of your day and the rest of your week.